Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This is going to be a really cool fireside chat with Coinmetro and Flux. How can you get any better than that? I'm Kevin Murcko. I'm the CEO and founder of Coinmetro. If you don't know about us, where have you been? Just go to coinmetro.com and check us out. Daniel Keller's with me today, co-founder and CSO at Flux. I'll let him introduce himself, and we're going to jump right into it because we don't have a lot of time. So go ahead, Daniel.
Hey guys, Kevin, thanks for having me. If this is a fireside chat, I brought the marshmallows and chocolate for s'mores, man.
Right on.
I am the CS.
You got to pass it somehow. I don't know. Here we go. You got to like stick it through the wall here.
All right. Yeah. So sorry about that. Like, I don't know, man. Like, we were just talking about when tech guys have tech problems. It's kind of funny. Like, I had 6 versions of me playing in the background because I had all these tabs open up. It was crazy. So, no, Kevin, I am excited to be here today, man. I think this is like our first AMA, which seems to be impossible because we've been working together for so long, and running in the same circles with the same group of cohorts, right? I mean, I'm super happy to be here today.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Daniel. Appreciate that. I'll just jump right in. So my first question is going to be, I guess, and it could be a difficult one, but I think it's an easy one. So what have you guys been up to? I mean, we haven't had an AMA before, but we've definitely talked a lot about Flux. I think everybody in our community knows about Flux. Lots of people own Flux. Lots of people use your platform. So I think they know more or less where you guys have been and to some extent what you've been up to. But I hear you got some cool stuff on the horizon. So let us know.
We do. We've been super busy, Kevin, and honestly, it's all about infrastructure at this point. When the prices are down and the bear market's bit its teeth into us, it's all we can do is build, and that's exactly what we're doing. So, Flux is really, we're positioning ourselves to be the infrastructure play for Web 3, or if you ask Jack Dorsey, Web 5, could we Web 10, whatever it is. I don't care the number, we're going to run it, right? So we are going to be the delivery framework for whatever the next version of the internet is, right? Web 3 is what we call it, but so, one of the things that we had recently launched is, we want to make sure that what we're building and what we're developing feels a lot like deploying standard infrastructure, because you got a lot of people from, Web 2 world that comes in, and we want to make sure they're super comfortable with kind of spanning both horizons. Flux isn't, maximalist. We don't believe that Web 3 will immediately take over the world the same way that Web 2 and cloud infrastructure didn't take over the world when on-prem still existed. I mean, on-prem still is there. As a matter of fact, it, continues to keep developing out. Cloud helps to augment that. And I think Web 3 and decentralized cloud, what Flux is going to do is going to be a third part of that as well and help augment that. So, I think we're going to be the yin to the yang for VPS and Web 2, and then that's really kind of what our push has been here recently, is to work on a lot of those pieces to bring that all together.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think we're kind of barking up the same tree, right? Talking about generally just making it easy for people to transition from old world to new world.
Yep.
Whether that be with data, whether that be with a value, whether that be with data that has a value, whatever, but making that transition easy, because most people, well, as you get older, you get afraid of change,
Oh, yeah.
I guess when you're real young, you're afraid of change. And then some point along the way, you like really love change. And then you get to a certain age and you kind of get scared of it again.
What the hell happened? What the hell happened to us, Kevin? Because we're old, but we love change, right? So we love.
Yeah.
We're anomalies, right?
Yeah. Well, there's always a few. The outer, the guys that hang out outside the periphery that end up liking stuff. But I still think, I find myself though. I think there's a certain age where most people, tech guy or otherwise, you get to a certain point. Whatever it could be, music, it could be tech. I don't know. This is that's where you get, and then after that, as you get older, you just don't. It's like nothing else exists but what you knew, But yeah, at least with like tech guys, I think we kind of continue to look at new stuff. But like with music and stuff, I think everybody's the same, right? You get to a certain age and you're like, this is terrible. You just can't evolve. But fortunately, some of us do evolve, at least on the tech side. So that's pretty cool.
I will tell you this, because it's a cool story I'll share with you. I was sitting on a call with a Fortune 200 company. I showed up. I had no idea it was going to be the board, like senior VPs and stuff like that of this company, and they really wanted to understand Web3. They wanted to understand decentralized compute. And so they almost, when I got there, they almost kind of laughed at me because, again, I didn't know. So I show up with like the Death Star plans behind me. I'm in my, Flux gear and everything else. And I'm like, they probably thought I was an idiot. And about 20 minutes into my presentation, one of the senior VPs stopped me and he goes like this. He goes, hold on, I want to ask you a question. He goes, so you're telling me that my data will be all over the world, ran on decentralized servers that other people control? And I said, yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. And he says, that's terrifying. And I said, well, that's not the first time I've heard that, because about 12 years ago, when I was pitching cloud-based infrastructure to on-prem people, they said the exact same thing. And he kind of just smirked at me and he said, touche. You know what I mean? Like, so that's where we're at. You know what I mean? Like, the old guard is, sometimes they have it's forced adoption because we're changing things, we're changing technologies, and people just kind of have to gravitate toward that. And sometimes it's just that natural assumption. So, the younger folk will definitely be able to adopt it a little easier, I think.
Yeah, I think it's also about the sales pitch too, right? Because obviously, depending on how that sales pitch, depending on how it's described, it can sound either really scary or really secure, really safe, and really, really scalable, right? So it's kind of depending on how that's pushed, and I, just like in any sales pitch, it depends who you're talking to, right? So yeah, when you have the old guy in a suit.
They don't let me sales pitch, man. I just have to. I just do it factually, and it's like it's shock and awe. So first it's shock. Oh my god, my business model, and then it's awe. It's like, oh, I could actually use this. Shock and awe. That's me.
Yeah. Shock and awe is a sales strategy, I think.
Well, maybe.
You got to get you got to move the line somehow. Shock and awe works for sure.
I'm patenting that shit. I'm gonna write a book, Shock and Awe by Dan Keller.
Yeah, shock and awe. Just a bunch of pictures of guys with at first their face is kind of like, oh my god, and then just shock and awe. Wasn't that one of the Gulf Wars? Was shock and awe?
Yeah. I think it was the first one.
Yeah. Well,
a gazillion years.
You can't.
Ago.
Yeah, it couldn't be the second one, because how would they be shocked?
There was no shock.
They might be in awe.
Maybe shock and disgust.
Yeah. That's what happened afterward. The disgust follows the shock. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're talking about tech guys here. So I have an acronym that I think most of the world has no idea what it means, and I'm looking at the Death Star thing behind you, and I think it kind of correlates pretty nice. So IPFS, what is it? And tell me how it ties into what we were just talking about.
It's Interplanetary File System, if you can believe that one. It took a little bit of a sales job to me as well. Anytime you name something like that, IPFS, I was like, well, there has to be something logical behind it. And then they told me, and I'm like, all right, well, we named our nodes a Banff. So, I mean, you know what I mean? When in Rome, So, yeah, we just actually did our pull request to put IPFS live on Flux this morning. It actually, the pull request came down, so they're in the process of approval. So anyone from the Flux community or anyone else that's interested, one of the big sticking points for Flux was our persistent storage. So persistent storage is right on the heels of that. So back up a little bit, Kevin. We launched geolocations, which is super important. And people say, well, why are geolocations so important? Well, the ability to have a decentralized network that you can actually deploy in regional areas is absolutely imperative. Game developers, and we'll talk about, I'm going to share some news about something we're doing on gaming. But game developers need to have low latency, redundancy, low ping times. Well, if they can do it regionally and deploy those game servers appropriately, they can do that. The other item that really comes into the focus of geolocation is the fact that you have regulatory compliance. So, everybody thinks that Web3 is this wild, wild west, where they're just going to put everything on there, right? And in reality, what it's going to come down to is it's uncensorable data. It's there forever. However, there are going to be people that build their business cases on that. And if they're building their business cases on that, they need to make sure they're regulatory compliant if it's a regulatory compliant business. So if Dan deploys, I can select to do geolocations. I can select the region that I want to deploy to, and I now deployed my decentralized servers to that region. If I don't select that or I don't want that, then Flux just fires them all across the world in random areas, and that's where it runs. So I would say the majority of our just normal users are just they won't use geolocations. But let's say we have a gaming company that's working to develop on the platform, which we have several. The geolocations had to happen. So now we have geolocations. We got our IPFS that launched in our persistent storage within the next, I don't know, I would say a couple months. It's kind of in quasi beta right now. We're testing it with Titan, which is our node service as well. So between all those pieces, we're stacking up to be the go-to, and that's just factual. So I'd put our tech up against anyone else's. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's, I mean, you mentioned, as soon as you mentioned this, you said decentralized regional, which kind of, it's just an amazing conjunction of two words, to be honest. But yeah, the first thing I mentioned, I wrote it down. Actually, I even for my handwriting is fucking horrible, but you can see I wrote regularly.
It looks like mine.
Yeah. It's a sign of intelligence to have shitty handwriting. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm going to go with it.
We made it up. It's true now. Yeah. It's true now.
Sounds amazing, doesn't it? Though, I mean, that sounds about right. Doctors are usually famous for having bad handwriting. You would hope a doctor's intelligent. I mean, at least that's some level.
Yeah, you would. So you're saying we're doctors, is what you're saying. So I'm down with that.
More PhDs. I would go with doctors of something.
Doctors of blockchain. There you go.
Yeah. PhD in blockchain.
There we go.
I'll put that on my LinkedIn profile.
Hell yeah.
So decentralized regional sounds amazing. The first thing I thought of, obviously, was, I come from a trading background. So obviously, when you scale across the globe, you want to make sure you have regional servers to support low latency, traffic in probably the major kind of trading areas of the world, which would be Japan, Western Europe, US, et cetera, maybe even both coasts, Australia, et cetera.
Oh yeah.
So that's actually really cool. And I also thought of, just CDN in general, like content delivery networks. Obviously,
yes,
a lot of people, Amazon became huge because at the time, I remember we had a website and you needed to have global access to that website. And there were very few server farms. You put your website in the US, but then the 2 ISDN lines they have or internet connectivity they have goes down, you're screwed.
Yep.
Right? That's it. Your website's offline for who knows how long. I remember Hurricane Sandy was like 2000, maybe 11, 12.
I was going to say, I thought it was 13 or something like that.
Might be 13. Yeah, I just remember that Hurricane Sandy was a stage 1 hurricane that hit New York City, like literally a storm that shouldn't have done any damage to anything. And most of the data centers that handled financial information in New York, which is the second biggest financial data network in the world behind London, were underground and they flooded. And it literally shut down financial markets for 2 or 3 days.
Who the hell? Who did that risk analysis? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what do you got? Category 1? Oh, it's just going to wipe out all our data centers. It's cool.
Yeah,
it's cool, bro.
Probably a blind and deaf guy, but he needed a job, so they found one for him. Risk analysis for the financial markets makes sense to me.
Yeah, geez, Pete's, man, that is insane. Yeah. But yeah, the other thing you have to look at too, Kevin, is the fact that a lot of the things that we're talking about, like with NFTs and other platforms like that, I am not a huge fan of NFTs. I think geolocations are going to absolutely allow us to get into the boring stuff, like municipalities, bonds, local regional stuff, actually using non-fungible tokens for what they are actually meant for, other than just, selling a JPEG or a GIF, So I think that's again, like you mentioned, Amazon, I would say if Flux is like Amazon year 2 or year 3, we've built the framework for delivery. And now we just have to deliver the model. And people say, well, what can you do? Could you do this? Can you do electronic medical records? Yes, we can do that. Once our persistent storage is finalized, EMR paradigm is right on the map. Can you do, the metaverse? Well, yeah. In the metaverse, if you get a real definition of what the metaverse is, right? You're going to own property. You're going to own things in this new metaverse world. And if all of a sudden the infrastructure that's running this metaverse platform, let's say they just decide to stop supporting it. Amazon doesn't like Facebook anymore, or Facebook doesn't like so-and-so, and all of a sudden they shut those VPS servers off. Your ownership to that items that you've purchased in that platform or developed in that platform, fucking gone. So, our goal is to make sure that that doesn't happen. And I'm sorry I said the F word. I apologize about that. I don't know.
We're all fucking adults.
Okay, all right. I've heard you say it before too, so I felt comfortable. I was like, all
right. I throw it out every once in a while. I also read, this is actually something I actually read, is that the correct use of profanity actually means a higher IQ. That I read somewhere.
I read that too. I'll vouch for you on that one. And that was one I'm sticking. I tell my wife that quite frequently. I'm like, look, honey, it's like this,
in the middle of a tirade,
Yeah,
by the way,
yeah. Look how educated I'm being.
Yeah, how educated I am while I'm watching this sports match on a Sunday.
Yes, exactly. Educated. Yes, just exuding.
I said sports match, which makes me sound like I'm 90 years old. I just figured I'd throw that out. Because I don't know what kind of sports everybody watches. I could say football and I could say tennis. Nobody who watches tennis. Anyway,
nobody watches tennis. Nobody watches tennis.
Watch tennis. I don't. Yeah. So you mentioned Metaverse. I have a kind of funny story. Over the weekend, I was in Malta, and I was sitting at a table about 15 dudes. We're all probably in our 40s to 50s, somewhere in there. And we had this debate. We had a debate about the Metaverse, and I zoned out for a bit, and I felt like probably any 40 to 50-year-old guy back when like the radio was supposed to be the worst thing ever for children, or then TV or the internet, because we were all in there shitting on the Metaverse about how it was like, and not in every way, obviously, but in certain ways, it's like the worst thing that ever happened to humanity. And it just made me laugh. So I figured I'd throw that out. It's not the worst thing that ever happened to humanity, by the way. But
any disruptive technology. I mean, in any disruptive technology that comes out, you always have your naysayers. You have that adoption curve, right? That bell curve. I mean, we're super early. I was talking. We're hiring some junior developers, and I was doing an interview with a couple of them, and I'd say the question that always comes up is like, I don't know anything about blockchain. Like, I'm a developer, I know how to code, but I don't know blockchain. I'm like, good, because then you're green. You don't have any pre-formed notions about what blockchain is, the metaverse is, NFTs are, anything. We're going to help you form that. And it's like, I like it when people come in like that. And I tell them all the time, on that adoption curve, we're like right here. If it was a baseball game, we didn't even leave to go to the stadium yet. You know what I mean? It was so stinking early. So, I mean,
I think even saying I'm a programmer, I don't know about blockchain kind of already shows how little they know about blockchain, because obviously we're not talking about some nuanced technology. We're talking about the merge of four I say old, but four technologies that have existed for, decades that created now this new thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Well, we know the history of it though, Kevin. Like these guys coming in now, I would say the majority of the folks, they don't remember. Well, they don't know any of like the how everything materialized. You know what I mean? Like everything moved forward. So it's kind of I feel like a sage wizard when I'm talking to people, because they're like, tell me about the times when the hash wars were going on. Tell me about the time. Yeah, okay, I'll tell you. But yeah, it's kind of funny. But the young guys, they always come to us and they ask us the same thing. They're like, okay, if I was going to deploy on Flux or build something on Flux, what is the code language that I need to learn? And I tell them the exact same thing. It doesn't matter. Just go learn a code language. And if you can Dockerize it, you can deploy it on Flux. And that's what makes Flux so great, is folks that, they may have learned, Java, JavaScript, Python, whatever the language is. Good. Then you use it. You can, if you have a pre-existing application you've developed, Dockerize it, deploy it on Flux. Now it's decentralized. So,
I mean, I think the combination, that geolocation thing's still sticking in my head, but the combination of geolocations obviously being kind of agnostic, not only on, let's say, the code side, but also agnostic on, not being a maximalist, meaning we're not just fixated on one specific pathway to get where we want to go.
Yep.
That combination, I mean, you could argue that some of the other players that obviously aren't going down the Web3 path, but even your Web2 got there eventually, but it took them, a decade or more to get to that point.
And a whole lot of hand holding and dragging.
Yeah,
like literally.
So to start there is actually an amazing kind of one-up, comparatively speaking to the rest of the market. So that's really cool. So just NFTs. I know this. I don't want to have a big conversation about NFTs, but you mentioned municipalities and things, especially going around with this geolocation idea. And I've been kind of preaching NFTs aren't crazy pictures of apes for ever since I saw a crazy picture of an ape. Now in hindsight, I kind of wish I would have bought one for a tenth of an ETH. But hey, let's not go back. Let's not beat ourselves up about
that's here nor there, man. We're not going to hold it against Joe.
Yeah, but there's so many things you can do with non-fungibles. So and especially with the combination of the geolocations, I can imagine so many things, even let's say boring things, but obviously for people in those industries, not boring, but like logistics and just moving objects from one location to another, especially digital objects. The traceability you get from being able to geolocate where those objects are actually. It sounds. I don't know. That sounds really fascinating to me, to be honest.
Well, and the other thing you have to think about is there hasn't been copyright regulation around NFTs. It's been a free for all. It's the early days of crypto when everybody was forking everything and they were running ICOs and everything like that. They're creating these NFTs. It was funny, Kevin, because somebody posted in the Discord. They said, "Hey, I bought this NFT," and it was one of those bored apes with the monkey. I don't know, whatever the hell it is. But and he's like, I just got this NFT, and I was like, 10 seconds later, I was like, "Hey guys, look, I just got this NFT. I just copied his," and then I put it as my avatar, and he's like, "Hey, dude, that's messed up." I'm like, "Well, now you understand why NFTs are a challenge, right?" So,
And this is why you need to rent. You need to find a way to rent your NFT and get some revenue when someone else,
bingo,
start sharing it around.
And not only that, think of that, the content developers who start to develop NFTs on, let's say, Joe Rogan does, a special part of his podcast that's specifically, geared toward an NFT. And you can basically rent that NFT and use it for everything, but eventually it expires and you're not using it anymore. Geolocations make it possible for regulatory compliance within regions as well. So if you have copyright laws that are specific to the areas and you have a project that wants to meet those copyright laws and make sure that they're very compliant and they're developing their platform and they want to do it in a decentralized way, they can do it with Flux. And that's a game changer. And I had an NFT evangelist come to me one time. I said, sit and preach to me why NFTs are important. And none of the points that I just told you ever came out of their mouth. And I was like, okay, yeah, we're very early. Yeah. So let's work on building some frameworks so we can help with that model as well.
Yeah. Anyway, great ideas or great technology is always used in the lowest common denominator ideas initially. That's always the case, right? Yep. I mean, and that's fine because unfortunately those lowest common or fortunately, I guess, those lowest common denominator ideas tend to grow very quickly. It just gives people exposure to the general idea, and then it's not so foreign to them. So when someone comes and has an even actually applicable better idea that can actually provide some utility or some value, they already kind of understand at least enough to not dismiss it immediately.
Yeah, well, God bless failed ideas like that, because if you've been around long enough to remember the masternode craze where everybody was doing these masternodes. Well, that's what bore Flux out. You know what I mean? Our deterministic nodes were built on that failed technology. We basically said there's about 1% of this that's really worthwhile. Let's go ahead and capitalize on it. DeFi, our parallel assets. Our parallel assets were born out of the failed, interchain operability of DeFi and the centralization of DeFi. So, God bless failed ideas, because I'll take your shitty ideas and I'll make them good.
It's like it's literally like free M&A.
Yeah. Just what did they do? What did they do wrong? This is all the stuff that can go wrong with it. Now let's find the good technology out of that, and that's what we'll
exactly. Deploy. So we've been chatting here a bit. I think let's open up the floor a bit. We got some questions that already rolled in. By the way, guys, I should have mentioned at the top of the show, but if you have a question specifically for Daniel, I mean, if you have a question for me, have at it. But I want to give Daniel the time to shine here. So if you have a question for Daniel, throw it into wherever you might be, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, wherever we are, Twitter. And I'll make sure I get, as long as if you ask me something ridiculous or stupid, I'm not going to read the question. Just going to throw that out there. If there's a when moon, I might ask it once because, everybody asks that question. It's always fun to answer when moon. at night is usually a good answer for Wind Moon. But anyway, let's jump in. I'm going to throw this one up on the screen. Here we go. So good morning, gentlemen. Definitely two of my favorite people. This is the only reason I threw this one on the screen, by the way. So I didn't even read the rest. So hopefully it's not disastrous. Let's see what happens. Can you guys discuss the regulatory landscape and why Flux and Coinmetro are well prepared to handle the ever-changing compliance hurdles? So I think Daniel you touched on this already, but maybe we give a little summary, saying somebody might take a snippet of this thing and,
well, yeah, and I think Kevin, what they mean, and I think the elephant in the room, obviously, with regulation is, a lot of these projects that have been, proof of stake or token minted, what does that mean and how will that impact it? So the way that Flux has handled that from day one is we built our project to be regulatory compliant, and I mean regulatory compliant across the board. We've had 3 legal reviews. We've passed the Howey test. I would say, other than Bitcoin, I would feel the most comfortable with Flux as a utility asset. And the question is how do I know if it's a utility asset? Well, we've baked Flux into every, Flux OS. If you want to deploy a website, you need Flux. If you want to do it Oracle, you need Flux. Want to run a node, you need Flux. If you want to stake on Coinmetro, you need Flux. If you want to run, be part of Titan, you're going to need Flux. Every single component of the ecosystem has tied back to, and we didn't build some bullshit gas model. We use the asset, and that's really what a utility asset is. And I mean, as you're starting to see some of this regulatory clarity come, and Kevin, you're seeing it too, I'm sure, because I'm seeing it. I truly believe 80% of the projects that are out there today will not exist in another year. I really do, and I think it's going to be, either they're going to their own main chain, or there may be a reprieve for them to get there. But yeah, I think it's going to be ugly. I would say the majority of the projects, if you look at, CoinMarketCap, top 400 projects, I would say a good 70% of those projects, if not more, are unregulated securities. And that's just factual. And I'm sorry if you're offended by that, if you have a bag of, some token, ass token or whatever it is I saw the other day. Oh my God.
Yeah. Somebody actually tried to pitch me ass token because it's Australian sheep shepherd.
Oh, there you go.
This was in the Dogecoin, the Shiba Inu hype. And someone literally tried to pitch it to me. Almost, I swear to God, like I was a VC and they were trying to pitch me a business idea. They literally talked for 15 minutes about how I should throw some money in ass token. And I said, and I let them finish, I let them go through the whole spiel. I kind of just sat there, nodded a bit, and then went, no. And that was it. Crushed a few dreams maybe, but hopefully save the guy some money. Because
when you're building a project, there's like a short checklist, and like the first question is like the name. They failed it immediately. Just throw it away and just move on.
Yeah. Unless it was like some unfortunate thing where it's like I don't know, some really legitimate name, and that for some reason they use some like automated AI to pick an algorithm to pick the, and it had to be the initials.
That's
or whatever.
Unfortunate.
I don't know. But the fact that you can literally take any ticker symbol and reuse another one, and there's no like ticker symbol authority for tokens.
Yes.
You can use the same one 50 times. So it's not like you're limited like with domain names or something. So yeah. As soon as I heard it, I was already saying no. I mean, I probably didn't even really listen to the rest of the pitch, but I heard Australian sheep shepherd. That was the one piece that I heard. But
there you go.
Yeah, I would echo what Daniel said, and I think at the end of the day, I think you're right. I think in business in general, most small businesses fail. So I think when you look at and most people that have a dream when they're a kid, they don't achieve that. Maybe they want to be a doctor or a lawyer, they want to go to the moon. I don't know, whatever. Most people fail at stuff throughout their life, and so tokens are no different. There's 20,000 tokens now listed on CoinMarketCap. Yeah.
Well, hasn't Coinbase added all those already?
Yeah, no, Coinbase actually has some that don't exist somehow. I don't
even know how the hell that happens. I sit there and laugh every time I see it. I'm like,
yeah. I mean, Coinbase kind of went from being kind of respectable to I don't know what they're doing anymore. But anyway, I mean that's whatever. They're still Coinbase. Well,
no, this is a big props to you, Kevin, and Coinmetro is the fact back when Flux was getting ready to list, you guys did like a super shit ton of due diligence on us. I mean, like you asked real hard hitting questions. Who's the team? What are they doing? What's their lockups? Where are they? Like that's how an exchange. And I will tell you, there are a couple other exchanges that I mean, The worst part of being in a crypto project is dealing with exchanges. I'll tell you that right now. That's the absolute worst part. And it was an absolute pleasure to work with the Coinmetro folks. I mean,
I would say, I would echo that just in reverse, saying that obviously we work with a lot of projects, and there's a short list. That's why we haven't listed so many assets, to be fair. But there's a short list of projects that we've contacted with and said, okay, we want to work with these guys. Obviously, Flux was one of the originals. We have this trifecta. We got Flux, we got KDA, we got Coinmetro. There's very few projects that we talk to where literally as soon as the Zoom call or whatever went off, we didn't go.
Yeah, what the hell's going on with that?
Just speechless. Either I don't know, you laugh, you cry, you do both at the same time. But yeah, absolutely, I would echo that comment 100%. I mean, it's difficult, but I don't want to say that's crypto's fault, because that's business in general, to be honest. It's just that when the bar is set too low, and initially in crypto the bar was too low, anybody can create an asset, anybody can go list it somewhere, anybody can. You bring in all the crazies, man. They come out of the woodwork. You get a lot of shit that makes no sense.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, well, and you not listing a bunch of tokens, that's just going to save you time in the long run of covering your ass and removing those when they call them securities. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's
having to go on like Bloomberg and say, well, the ass token felt like a good idea. Felt like a good idea at the time.
Yeah, I was all in ass. I mean, it was great.
I was knee deep in ass until I realized
it's not a good
bad choice. Yeah, and it was a little hard to exit, but eventually we got out of it.
Oh my god!
All right, let's find ourselves another question here. I think that was a good question though. Appreciate that one.
Yeah, Katie, that was good. Thank you.
I mean, there's a lot of questions in here, but I put my filtering hat on. All right, so Ken Eric raised his hand. He's got a few questions. Let's see. It looks like on the roadmap that Flux will set up a new Flux chain later this year. What is its purpose? On the other hand, are private addresses functions still available in Flux?
Okay, so good question. We are not looking to necessarily create a new chain, but we are looking to create basically proof of useful work, which is a new algorithm that's built around it. I mean, you could already say that Flux is already, we were a fork of Zcash, which was a fork of Bitcoin, but we've already changed the code enough. You would say that this is already our own chain. So I don't necessarily see us changing the chain, more or less the components of what's, interacting with the chain, the consensus mechanism, so on and so forth. That's going to change with proof of useful work. And I'm super excited about that. That's slated to be in testnet Q4 of this year. We're working with, a couple folks, big players in the space, the University of Applied Science in Geneva, Switzerland. We're also working, Kevin, we were accepted to the NVIDIA Inception program. So we were working a little with NVIDIA around their Jetson deployments, and obviously sets us up quite nicely to speak with them about, useful work as well. So that's that. So not necessarily a new chain. It's going to be a revamped chain, a revamped process, so with proof of useful work. And then the other one is, our private address function still available in Flux? No, we took them out quite a while ago, actually. And a lot of people say, well, why, Flux, Zelle back in the day when Zelle was born, Zelle was a privacy asset. Really, Zelle was just a carbon copy of Zcash, if you really want to get down to it. And we knew right away that we were going to need to erase some of these components, and to remain regulatory compliant and to keep us on the radar everywhere. You can't do both things. You can't be a secure. I mean, one would argue you can, but I haven't seen it yet. You can have privacy level components and also develop out what we're developing on, Web3 and, infrastructure for all. So there are other projects that are doing privacy really well. So when the team sat down and thought about it, we said, the best bet for us is to pick what is our strength, and our strength is to develop the infrastructure for Web3. And we'll partner with a very we've already started working with Haven. We've already started working with a few other projects. We work with Firo. These are folks that are already doing privacy by nature. So, it's not a one, you have to do everything. Choose logical partners. And if you choose logical partners, you can then add things into the framework as you grow. So that's the answer to your question is no, it's not there.
Yeah. And I would just echo that. I think I think if we do this right collectively, meaning crypto in general, we kind of do this right. We work with regulators. We try and shape our future a little more than traditional finance has tried in the past, or just try a different approach. I think at the end of the day, privacy will come back. And I've even heard CBDC conversations at the central bank, Fed bank level that talk about the need for a certain level of privacy with certain types of transactions, meaning, when you're going to spend less than X amount, it's relatively simplistic rules, but like you spend less than X amount, you should have the right to privacy.
Yeah, cash.
So, yeah, exactly. So
that's what we use cash for. If I get $100 out, they don't need to know where the $100 is going. It's going to go to wherever. But
yeah, exactly. And I think that's going to be a place. But the problem is if you run at a regulator with too many things they don't understand or don't like at once, like literally decentralized, scarcity, privacy, like it's
geolocations. What the hell is that?
Yeah, like blown up. Then they're just going to pick apart the things they really don't like. And privacy was one of the first things they attacked. Anybody that was in the regulatory scene in crypto when the first privacy coins came out saw the shitstorm coming. I mean that's for sure. But I think we'll get to the point again where privacy will be, okay. We're just not necessarily there yet on a mass scale, but I think we're going to get there.
Yeah, and I think there'll be some new and emerging projects that are specifically built around that privacy features that can be integrated into platforms like Flux. So I'm real curious. Maybe some old names become popular again. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, the important thing is that you're building infrastructure that again is agnostic, which means that when something's ready to roll, you guys can handle it.
We'll just grab it and run with it.
So yeah, Dan, I think you mentioned Titan already, but here we go. Dan, how gonna be Coinmetro when Titan be available? Well, this is my English is not as trained to pick up the nuance in the sentence, but
yeah. So I think what they're asking is, what does Titan mean to Coinmetro and the staking? And I don't think it means anything. I think they're two different components. I think people prefer sometimes the creature. Okay, so example of this is I had to explain about mining the other day, and I said, parallel assets, and people were like, well, if my pool just pays you the straight parallel asset, and some pools actually convert the parallel asset and they pay you directly in, Flux, which is super easy. If Dan can run like a gazillion Cumulus nodes, or he can run a Stratus node, what's Dan going to run? Dan's going to run whatever easy. So I think it's what Coinmetro has made it unbelievably easy. And by the way, I know the infrastructure that runs the Coinmetro setup, and I love it. It's great. It's good stuff. You guys are doing it the right way. It's decentralized. And that's a big deal. So I just think it's whatever the creature comforts are. If somebody wants, to participate in actually running a node, Titan would be way to go. If you just want to stake your Flux and earn a nice, APY on it, that's Coinmetro. So I think that, our goal is to ultimately allow people to make those choices and whatever works for them.
Anyway, choice is what we're here to. I mean, markets need choice, right? A market without choice, I would argue, is not a market.
Yeah, and I'd rather see somebody like, and I won't mention any names, but the exchange starts with a K. I'd rather see somebody like Coinmetro, who I know is working hard to build the back end infrastructure to keep it, decentralized, secure, and safe. That I would rather see Coinmetro doing any day than someone else of that nature. So I think you're going to see Coinmetro and I can't speak for you, Kevin, but I think it's going to continue to keep accelerating as Flux popularity continues to keep accelerating.
I think I don't see any reason why it shouldn't. To be fair, to be honest. So let's jump into another question we have with IPFS again, interplanetary file system. For those that joined late. Just sounds amazing. I like saying it. I think I'm going to say it one more time before I finish this question. Does that make Flux a competitor to decentralized storage solutions such as Filecoin? Good question.
I don't necessarily think competitor. I always say this, we don't have competition. We have opportunities. So I could see a day where, Filecoin could launch maybe one of their node structures and tap into our storage nodes on Flux. So, here you got Filecoin, which really their focus is storage, right? And here's Flux, which is compute resources, but a byproduct of that is storage as well. So if you could take these guys and loop them in with these guys, and now they're working together, that's not competition, that's development, So there's very few projects out there that I deem as even what I would consider competitors, because really, if we get rid of our tribalistic natures and just stop talking about our bags, we're all building for the same thing. And that is the next generation of the internet, and blockchain is going to be the one that's powering that.
I would say you guys are much more like more infrastructure than anything else, which means at the end of the day, the more people that build on, the more people that have services that can potentially utilize your infrastructure, and that Filecoin could be one of them. Then it's not about competing for any single service. It's about providing infrastructure for all services.
Yep. Yeah, and we looked at Filecoin, we looked at storage, we looked at Golem, we looked at a lot of different projects that were doing these things, and we're like, hey, if we set this up correctly, if you build it, they will come, like the Field of Dreams, man. So that's I think
Costner, fucking amazing. Every time I go to a foreign country that speaks little English and I say my name is Kevin, the first fucking 2 words out of someone's mouth, Kevin Costner. I get that all the time.
Dude's popular. But come on, man.
Just annoying, to be honest.
After watching Yellowstone, I think they should just make a holiday in the States for him, because that man is like, he's a badass.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't look any. I mean, I don't know what. I think it's because the only Kevin they know, so that's like they just have to say it. It's like there's some inertia that they need to get it out.
Yeah, get it out there.
Maybe one day Kevin Costner will be called Kevin Murcko. That'd be amazing. I'd like to get that on video.
I like it. I like it.
So I had to throw this out. Oh, it's not really. We're not going to answer it, but anyway, Matthew wants to know when Moon, and so does Jeff Key.
Yeah, and he's on our team. So what the hell is he doing? So no, Joe, Davey, stop it. No, so
So there's a good answer to that. Is just at night.
Well, I think the real question is when Death Star, right here. So there you go. Yeah, when Death Star.
Yeah. So I'll answer this one quickly from Jose. Since Coinmetro offers staking options, does Coinmetro contribute to the network with nodes? Yes.
Hell yes, they do, and they're a big contributor, and we're grateful for that.
Yeah, we got a lot of nodes floating around there. I think we got even some that are still pending to launch. So even more nodes are coming for sure. If Flux was to hypothetically have issues with the chain, would Zelcore also, I guess, have issues? How connected are they both?
That is a freaking amazing question. So 619 YZ, thank you. That is good. So the answer is all these projects that are building on top of Flux, ultimately, as I said earlier, we're not agnostic. We're not like Web3 rules the world. Zelcore has Web 2 components in it as well. So, I mean, I would say the majority of it, let's say 70% of it, Zel ID, decentralized two-factor authentication, rate server, stuff like that, that runs on Flux. But we also have redundancy in the Web 2 space as well, so that if something would happen, that's just good planning on our part. Make sure that you've spread it around, especially with Zelcore because of people's assets. But as we continue to keep developing, I mean, Zelcore is really... it's really not tied to Flux in the sense that, it could live outside of the box if something would happen to Flux, but Flux is going nowhere. It's even if Dan was gone, Flux would still be out there, doing its thing. So, I know it's always a concern when you start building this technology out, but you could really flip this question around and you could say, what would happen to X if AWS went down, right? And we know the answer to that. It eventually comes back, but it goes down and then it comes back again. So, so
good old AWS. Good old AWS. To be honest, most of crypto is sitting on AWS, which is crazy when you think about the origins of why crypto even exists.
DeFi is not so DeFi, is it, Kevin?
Yeah. Nope, we call it AWS Fi in the office.
It's the truth. It's the truth. There are projects though, especially the ones in the Cadena ecosystem, that are really starting to focus in on deploying. I call it blockchain by birth. You know what I mean? They're front end, back end, and then they have some Web 2 components that they smatter in there. When all that stuff went down with Terra Luna and Anchor Protocol got slaughtered, right? And it got knocked offline. But the nice thing about it is it kept running on Flux. So people were actually able to use it on the Flux side of the house while it was down on the AWS side of the house. I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but for the folks that were...
But it's an amazing stress test.
But it is an amazing stress test. It's not one that I would recommend, but yeah, it was an amazing stress test.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take like one or two more questions, and I think we're going to round it out. This is actually a good one because I don't think I can answer this one, but maybe hopefully Daniel can. Will there be a solution to keep PreSearch nodes on Flux alive and online so they don't go offline and new nodes need to stake 4,000 PreSearch?
So the way that the initial deployment is Flux just does not support the grandfathered node keys. So I mean, if it does go offline, if your node goes offline, you do have to meet the new requirements of the project. We're working on deploying our persistent storage, and I think what's the persistent storage, and by the way, we're working with the PreSearch team to really figure out a way that this doesn't happen in the future moving forward. So I would say this, LZI 22, okay. Is it frustrating for you? I'm sure it is. But you are in a disruptive technology, and things will sometimes not work the way that you anticipate it because it hasn't been invented yet or it hasn't been developed. And this is exactly the situation that we're sitting in. We didn't develop it because it wasn't a thing, and now we are. So within the next 2 months, we'll have persistent storage. Persistent storage will allow you to, basically replicate those nodes and keep them online. And then that's what we're working to. So, all I can say is you're in a different world with this.
Aren't we all in it for the technology, man? Aren't we all in it for the technology? Isn't that the thing?
Well, it's funny. It's funny, Kevin, because you get a lot of people that are like, we love disruptive technology. We love blockchain. We love what this decentralization does. And the first inconvenience that they find, they're like, this is shit. So sad, really sad. Okay. I get it. I get your frustration, but you're probably in the wrong game if you're getting upset about that. So I'm just saying.
It's like the guy on the first flight that had Wi-Fi and then the Wi-Fi didn't work. As he's, cruising through the air at 35,000 feet, complaining that the Wi-Fi's out.
It sounds like my kids anytime. You know what I mean? Yeah. It doesn't even work.
Like the complexities of. But yeah, we get this stuff all the time. I understand it from a certain aspect as well, but at the same time, the word disruptive technology, there's literally the word disruption in there. And that doesn't necessarily just mean that the technology disrupts something else. It also means there's going to be disruption in the technology.
Yeah.
Because it's new.
You and I talked about change, right? So if you're uncomfortable with being in a position where you might have to change, then you're probably best to turn your node up on AWS or someone like that, because it doesn't make sense to run on a disruptive technology. And by the way, to deploy those PreSearch nodes was like 50 cents. Dude, I'm bummed for you, but really sad. No, I don't think. So anyway,
good. It was a hard question, a great answer.
Good question.
So I'm just going to throw this out there because this guy was waiting, so we'll see. Junior developer, can he apply to the Flux team? How does he do it?
Hell yes, we are hiring junior developers. We're also hiring deployment developers as well. So if you are familiar, if you have any familiarity with Docker, Kubernetes, if you if you know how to code but you haven't blockchained yet, come talk to us. You can drop us an email at info@zell.network or info@runonflux.io. Or you can just drop into our Discord and we'll chat with you there, and we'll get you into a DM and we'll go through the process. So we love our junior devs because they're super excited to help and develop, and we'd love to get a few more of them because it's good young talent is always, or in our case, old talent, right, Kevin? So it's always good to have.
Well, speak for yourself, Dan. This is. I was born with this. This isn't. This has no sign of age.
Yeah. Yeah. And this gray right here. Yeah. That's
yeah. I paint the gray in so I can look more distinguished.
It's fashionable.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm glad you noticed. I appreciate that you noticed that. So here's well, I think we have two more. We'll take this one more question, and then we're gonna tidy up. So will there be a time where node operators will get better percentage rewards if they are running the hardware at home versus running on a VPS, thus encouraging true decentralization?
Abso-freaking-lutely, and I will say that unequivocally. If you are, and I've been telling everybody this, I've been trolling and teasing this for the past few months. Our goal is to get out of the VPS providers and into home ran infrastructure to keep decentralization growing. When we did our node halvening, we saw that grow immensely. People just started turning up Raspberry Pis, Jetsons, you name it. Getting old servers running, getting infrastructure, bare metal infrastructure. So a lot of people build out their own, basically farms like of 7 or 8 nodes. So yeah, absolutely. At some particular point in time, we're going to identify those folks that are running from home, and there'll be foundational initiatives to reward them at a higher rate. It may not come from the block reward, but it may come from a different, like the node incentivization program we do with KDA. So these are all possibilities. So and not only that, if you're running from home, you could see some special little things come your way as well. Maybe some NFTs or maybe some special privileges for the folks that are dedicated, true decentralized warriors. And our partner projects are one of the things we're working on right now is our NFT linked watch from Kevin. You got to check it out, man. I'll send you the link, but it is sexy. So we basically took a watch from a company in Baltimore, and we built it out with serialized it with serial numbers, so on and so forth. We're going to do 250 of them. And if you have the watch and you have the NFT, they marry together to show ownership of the watch. This is NFT stuff that works, man. And and if
I'm going to get on some short list for that one. I got to be on a short list.
You're in, dude. I got you covered, bro. But what it's going to do is it gives us the opportunity to kind of showcase how NFTs really can work, and you'll get like a whole list of like creature comforts. Like you'll get special NFTs from our partner projects and labs. You'll get access to a private like cool guy and gal group that you can chat about and things like that. You'll get access to all of the Flux events. We have FluxCon that's coming next year. That's going to be huge. You'll get access, VIP access to all FluxCons. And you'll have to have your watch and you'll have to have your NFT in Zelcore when you walk up. So yeah, nice. Fun stuff like that. So yes, we want to reward people for participating and helping keep us decentralized and all that kind of stuff.
And the first NFT is going to be me and Dan shirtless. So watch out for that. That's going to be a big seller. We're gonna auction that off for charity, and unfortunately, they're not going to get a lot of money. But they're
not going to get a lot of money. No. I might buy it just to keep it off the internet. Okay.
Yeah. That's a good idea. I think maybe they will get a lot of money then. Maybe we'll be bidding each other out. I don't know. You don't want that. That's like a blackmail. You want to make sure that doesn't see the light of day.
Yep, absolutely.
We're going to leave it with this one. I think this is a cool question. So. Daniel, what are your thoughts regarding Flux working on interacting with centralized exchanges such as Coinmetro when the objective emphasis is on decentralization? Cool question. Let's see what.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'll go first and give you my opinion, Kevin. Then you can follow up and give what your opinion is. But one of the things that we talked about very early on with Coinmetro is the fact that there would be like this hybrid world where centralized exchanges also did something in the decentralized world, the DEX models, so on and so forth. So they were very forward thinking at the beginning, and we do work with exchanges that are thinking about that. When they approached us about, standing up Flux nodes and things like that, we absolutely helped them because that helps their back end is helping remain decentralized. So, I would say we have a bad taste in our mouth from the way that centralized exchanges have performed in the past, let's say 8 years. And I think the expectation is going to be much higher as DeFi continues to grow. I think you'll see centralized exchanges like Coinmetro that embrace that and say, hey, we can live in both worlds. We can provide you the creature comforts of having a centralized exchange if you don't want to maintain or custody your assets. And if you're a diehard like me that wants to be able to use that platform to maybe interact with DeFi and then take everything back to my Zelcore and so on and so forth, I think it's a perfect match. So, but I will say this, those centralized exchanges are few and far between. I would say there's two that I've worked with. Coinmetro is one of them, where they're that forward thinking. They're thinking about the next iteration of centralized technology. And I'll share one more thing before I cut here and give it to you, Kevin. When we originally talked to Binance the very first time, 3.5 years ago, about listing Flux, okay, one of their senior team members on the call that we were presenting Flux and so on and so forth mentioned that their biggest concern for centralized exchanges wasn't issues or anything like that, or hacks or vulnerabilities. It was other centralized exchanges coming online, taking away from their market cap and pushing them down in value. Well, now that's since then DeFi has come on board, and you're starting to see, folks started to really kind of morph into both of these areas. So yeah, that I think it's a good thing. Actually, I think it's going to end up being a better product for the customer in the end.
Yeah, I would echo all that. I mean, we talked about kind of choice earlier. And I think at the end of the day, the future of finance is going to be a hybrid between centralized services and decentralized services. Because,
yes,
like you said, historically, everything that's been done in finance has always been centralized. There have been attempts at some decentralization, obviously not what we're talking about today, but there have been attempts to decentralize certain bits of finance over the years. But the thing is that some centralization works and most of it doesn't. And so I think the hybrid, plus with regulation, you're not going to go from centralized to decentralized night one day to the next day. It's going to take time, and part of that is going to be creating this kind of hybrid. And I would also argue the same point that Dan did, in that I think Flux wants to go decentralized, which means they need lots of parties to gain access to their platform and services. What other great way to do that? There's many great ways, but one of the great ways to do that is by hooking up with centralized platforms that have access to a client base.
Yes.
Because one that's already by default helping decentralize their platform. Yes, it's one connection point, but it's an additional connection point. But it also exposes Flux to a lot of people who will end up using it directly to also expand on the decentralization. So I think adoption is always going to come mainly from centralized sources initially. And you can even argue, like, even advertising something is centralized, right? If you advertise something, you're on a centralized network advertising. Even if you're on a decentralized network, you're going through some type of centralized community to get there. So centralization is going to work in a lot of ways to help DeFi become bigger. And I think it's a marriage kind of literally made in heaven. It's a match made in heaven between the best of both worlds.
Amen.
We don't necessarily want all of centralization to continue forward, but we also don't want all of what's happening in DeFi to continue. I don't want a bunch of Terra situations happening. I don't want a lot. There has to be a nice middle ground where we create this brand new financial ecosystem that works for everybody, and it's going to be a piece of both sides.
Yep, and I think we're so early on, Kevin. It's a lot of these things haven't even materialized yet. So we're talking about technology that literally daily is changing. I mean, it's 24/7, 365 for blockchain and crypto. We don't rest. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good thing in the end, and I think that it's going to build a better product across the board.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think anybody. It'd be really hard to argue against that idea. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody that would try, but to be honest, I really don't see a future that doesn't include, both options.
Yep.
And that's great because, again, there needs to be choice. Some people want to do it one way, others want to do it another. Some people want to mix. There has to be choice in life, and that's a great thing. So yeah, I think we're going to end it there. Amazing questions, amazing answers. Dan, you've been great. Absolutely crushed it. We definitely need to do this again sometime in the near future when you have some amazing news to share.
Absolutely.
So let people know where they can contact you, get in touch with Flux, follow you guys before we go.
Yep. Big shout out to the Flux community and the Coinmetro community. You guys are awesome. You guys are a massive support. If you don't know about Flux, runonflux.io. You can follow us on Twitter at runonflux. You can also follow me personally to listen to the rantings of an old man at DAK_Flux. So yeah, come check us out. Jump into our Discord, chat with us. A lot of the community members that are in the Coinmetro community are also members of the Flux community, the KDA community, so on and so forth. So the holy trinity of blockchain.
Yeah. Triage. Well, triage sounds bad, like you're going to the emergency room. So I guess triage. Trinity's probably better than triage.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just erase that. Let's just pretend I never said triage.
All right, we're not triaging.
Yeah, up in the corner somewhere. I hate doing this. Like, it's like looking at. You ever try to shave in the mirror for like?
Well, I went like this to point to the Death Star, and I'm over here pointing at Satoshi.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know why I can't get used to this, but anyway, up in the corner somewhere around here, you'll see DAK_Flux plus my handle on Twitter and Telegram and pretty much everywhere. So yeah, reach out to us if you have questions. I'm also another old guy that likes to ramble a bunch of nonsense. I do that every Friday at Coinmetro's channel on YouTube. So check us out there as well. And we will definitely do this again. Thanks everybody. Thanks for the questions. Thanks Dan once again. Thanks for everybody for showing up. And see you guys sometime in the future. Maybe interplanetary file system somewhere. You'll see our faces. I don't know. Watch out for that NFT though. The shirtless NFT.
It's coming.
Get ready to not bid on it.
I got to get in shape though, Kevin. It's going to take a while.
Oh man, don't please, because then I'll look even worse. So just maintain. Just maintain. All right, guys. Cheers.
We'll see you.